Hello, welcome back to Regcast Central. My name's Tim Phillips, and we are talking about the cloud, but we're talking about the cloud in vertical markets because frankly, we're getting a little bit bored of all cloud vendors saying the same thing because we know that you're getting bored with it as well because it doesn't answer your business problems. So to help me work through several particular vertical market business problems, we've got Grant Tanner from Star. Grant, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Tim. How are you today?
Oh, I'm well. I'm looking forward to what we're going to be talking about in this one because we're going to be talking about media. And obviously, as part of the media myself, then I know you're enthusiastic about this, Graham, because I took the liberty of listening to your voicemails and. We talk a lot about in cloud as something that solves the problem of the continuing the inflation in the amount of resources that the IT department needs. From what you've been saying to us earlier, this is never more appropriate than in media, is it?
Absolutely. So I think that, media and people like, service providers like Star have looked at media and say, wow, people are going to spend loads of money with service providers because they all need big data, and they all need storage, and they all need delivery, and they all need broadcast, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The rise of adaptive bit rate and smart TVs mean, service providers out there are just going to be bundling cash in their pockets. The reality is, I think it's been a bit of a damn squib. I don't think anybody's really, come up with any great solutions for digital media, other than media in general, actually. But digital media is one where we're quite strong, because, quite frankly, it's such a specialised area. It's best trying to support your IT people in there with some of the solutions that are, if you like, common to them. So our take on the media proposition is, yes, we will help you create platforms for service around cloud, but ultimately there's a really, use us for the things that we do really well, and then re-engage with us for the things you do really well.
Now, when you talk to media companies, well, I suppose we ought to define our terms as well. On what do you consider to be media companies? Where does it stretch from and to? And I guess that's part of the problem of providing services for them, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, you've got everything from global broadcast organisations through to creatives and advertising. We are very firmly UK-focused into media hubs, which are really sort of geographic for us. So looking at the media-type companies that are using digital media in the main in Bristol, Manchester and London. So we do a little bit of work with some of the agencies, whether they be sort of web design agencies or creative agencies, stroke advertisers. We also do a little bit around some of the technology companies that are supporting, broadcasters. So it's quite a mixed bag for us, but we don't do sort of global broadcasting connectivity and things like that, or satellites. We are looking at sort of more of the common applications. But then we'll work with some key partners for things like, again, rich content distribution if they required it. But it is a very big mixed bag, and I think that's half the challenge of trying to service this market. So, our view is Star does this very, very well. We can tailor this around your business, use and consume it, and then that will free you up to work on more of the innovation around your own around your own media proposition.
Well, let's have a look at what this is, the sorts of IT constraints that these companies are under, because I guess a lot of them want to be high-growth companies. They're quite tech-savvy companies, but they have very high IT demands, don't they?
Absolutely. So I think that what we are saying is that there's a very simplistic, total cost of ownership model around what cloud could deliver to you. And these are things like common applications. And what I mean by that is things like email, voice over IP, telephony, and sort of down into web hosting, back office hosting. These are things really that a cloud provider could deliver to you per person, per month, per seat.
Pretty generic though, Grant. Anyone could have that. You don't have to be a media company to benefit from cloud for that.
And I would agree. And ultimately, as a service provider, we are quite horizontal in terms of what we're offering. But the reality is that we do have some skill sets in account management that specialise in those 3 geographic regions where the media companies truly are. So you've got people like Aardman down in Bristol, you've got the BBC relocating into Manchester, and then you've got people like Saatchi and Saatchi and all of the large ad agencies in London. So we specifically have gone to salespeople, account management people, and service people that live and breathe this stuff, and will understand things like Flash, HTML, H.264, those sort of technologies are out there. So we are saying yes, we have a horizontal proposition that will support your business by reducing costs and delivering back those services better. But we also understand what it means to be a broadcaster in this market. Now that's quite different, I think, to other service providers that are only providing the generic services.
Now, what other services then do you provide? Because these guys, they're working with a lot of data, and they have to move that data around, I guess. And that sort of thing. Now, is that something that the cloud lends itself to?
Absolutely, and I guess this is again quite a generic statement, but things like storage, archiving, backup, BCP and disaster recovery are very, very quick wins when you talk to cloud providers. But again, it's very generic. So our view would be actually, what rich content do you want to move around, and actually, how much of the cloud could you leave for that? So again, looking at some of the largest DDN companies out there, looking at some of our partners in terms of how they provide global transit, the more that you can utilize cloud for, obviously the less pressure there is on your internal IT. If using a cloud provider means your data is going to be load balanced across 2 data centers and it will just be available, then that lends itself very well to your workflow if you're a print and publisher. So it's the thing about not just looking at large storage devices, but how does that help your business process? And I think there's some great wins there that cloud give an organisation.
They're talking to some cloud providers when they're talking about these problems of big storage data and everything like that. You get the idea of them just selling some sort of giant USB stick to. But you're saying that there are more things that you have to wrap around that if it's going to be useful for this type of customer.
Absolutely, and actually these things do not have to be overly specialised. These things are things like SharePoint delivery, content management systems, CRM systems, and I think that the job that Star's done quite well is pre-integrating those. So we will deliver to a desk, a per person per desk, a pre-integrated solution for their unified comms, including all of their voice and applications, and supporting some of their workflows. So actually, cloud is a very quick way to move without too much risk into changing your workflow, and that would lend itself, say, to a print and publisher that's using multiple inputs. I mean, typically, Tim, someone like yourself that that may be writing an article out on your iPad. Well, how do you get that to the reg in time for the delivery of their web content? If you can provide some simple collaborative tools, which a lot of this is based on Microsoft Suite, okay, it makes it so much easier because you use that every day anyway. So you don't have to jump off and use a different system for that. You can actually use the system you're used to using.
My boss at the Reg would be particularly interested in how do I get it to him on time. But that gets back to the idea of media companies saying there's no business in the world at the moment that isn't pressurized for time, because if you can do something quicker, it's better, generally speaking. Media has to work to specific deadlines, and it has to be able to do it quicker. You have to provide some sort of service level assurance for them in this case that things will be available and that you will be able to achieve the sorts of service in handling their data that you promise. How do you cross that bridge?
Well, yeah. So I will answer that question. But so another thing that adds to that is really the acquisitive nature of media companies right now. With the lack of funds coming from advertising rates, etc. A lot of the production houses getting bought by, basically very large American production houses. It's then, okay, this data now is copyrighted, important, and needs to be secure. But let's say, you and I are producing a film and we've just gone bust and Endemol have bought the rights to that. Then how do they get to that data if it's sitting in, a storeroom that's locked away? So cloud services, just on that sort of, that hosted storage element of that piece of data, really make it incredibly flexible for a business to say, well, actually, we have acquired, Tim and Grant's business. Their data isn't sitting underneath Tim's desk. It's actually sitting in a cloud provider. So we can now speak to that cloud provider and download that content. That's what I mean by the sort of the ease of use of cloud services. And I think, again, that's understanding the sort of nature of media where it is today. It's not all about this thing of actually we're going to buy large pipes and distribute, broadcast quality data. It's actually a little bit more simplistic in our world. It's how do we make sure data, and it's very large data, is secure, is replicated, is backed up and delivered to where it needs to go. And even as far as putting an escrow service underneath that as well, so actually we can protect it. So, I think those things are things that IT want to hear, because that is really, business critical if those IT services aren't there anymore. And I can cite many examples, Thames Television being one of them, that are owned by Pinewood Group. They're going through a torrid time of closing down that site. Well, someone surely must be asking an IT, bloody hell, what do we do with this data? And if the data is sitting in one of their storerooms, there's probably a better route to do it. And the better route is we should really have this stuff in the cloud, which is available to the new acquirer of our business.
Now, a lot of data is consumed very close. A lot of broadcast data is consumed very close to where it is produced, which is something that I learned. And again, this goes back to the sorts of relationships you have with CDNs. These sort of can optimize the delivery of information from one place to another.
Absolutely. So we are really understanding now that got the encoding, rendering devices out there that need to be fit for purpose, and we need to understand that language, which we do. So things like the role of H.264 in broadcast, things that are, people buying smart TVs, how is the data going to be manipulated so everybody can get to it? That stuff that's evolving within Star that brings us much, much closer to understanding the vertical market that we play in media. And obviously I'm talking about broadcast media there. So I think we've got a bit of a blend of solutions, because media is such a big vertical in terms of all the different players. But working with some smart people out there that live and breathe this stuff means it becomes very economic for the smaller companies to consume our services. What the enterprise is doing last year, the mid-market does the year after, and Star is sort of almost a glue for that. We can take enterprise class solutions, be that managing big storage demands, big databases, or the delivery of broadcast type quality of media down into the mid-market. And let's face it, the mid-market in media are small production teams, are small creatives, are people that are managing content, and a massive technology piece. And Star is a technology company at heart. So when we love these conversations with media that get into that complex technology piece, because we've got some very good solutions around it, which I think allow maybe some of the larger companies to be a little bit more flexible about their merger and acquisition targets.
It's almost a challenge for some of the people who are listening now. Give Star a call and see if you can confuse them with your jargon. But it's for some of those guys as well. Isn't there an incentive for them to work with just the largest possible cloud provider, because the idea of infinite scaling is very attractive?
Well, I mean, so we've got a couple of larger companies that we work with. Bezier being one of them, and Bezier do sort of pop-up media for advertising stands and things. So they deal with massive amounts of data, and they were with big providers that fail to understand their needs as a media company, and we're just arduous in trying to deliver any of the services. So, we've already done the hard work for these guys. We don't want to make this hard work for our customers. We want to make it easy. So we have to form relationships with them. And I think, we're verging on a 50 million turnover business. We're sort of, small enough to be quite nimble, but big enough to actually deliver and put some risk in the game. And I don't see the other players doing that. Certainly, with the large-scale media companies, particularly around sort of record companies and broadcast-type companies, they are operating on a much, much global scale that have a lot more revenue. But these smaller companies that we deal with are generally supplying into these businesses, so that they have to work, with a nimble company to package up their solution. In many respects, Tim, Star becomes their solution. We are providing the platform of services to allow their solutions to be sold up the chain.
There's a lot of this is about collaboration, better collaboration, isn't it? You mentioned before the mergers and acquisitions, and at this point, I would just like to mention, if anyone's thinking of buying the register, you can't afford us. But also, a lot of these companies have to work together on a project basis, where even if they're not going to join up together and become the same company. And within the company, they work on several sites on the same project. So this sort of thing, on the one hand, lends itself to cloud technologies because the data can live with you and they can use it. On the other hand, a lot of cloud technologies don't solve the fundamental problem, which is how do you get people to work together? Do you have those skills?
You're verging on cultural differences now, I guess. But, yeah, so again, going back to my sort of recurring theme of the moment, which is innovation, innovation starts by people knowing what direction they want to take. And there will be some, we've seen some customers make some dreadful solutions, some mistakes in this by not getting the culture of innovation in their businesses. All we can do is support them as best we can, but there needs to be a sort of a cultural mindset that says, you know what, we are a young, agile, media-based organisation. We want to work with people that are similar. So I think that you're seeing the rise of organisations like Star that look and feel a little bit like a startup, actually, in many respects, really dovetailing into that the newer generation. And I guess media's always been one that's a little bit more out there than, say, pharmaceuticals or something. And I think which by definition that there is innovation because they are servicing customers that are seeking innovation. So if they can't show the latest and greatest technology, then there's almost they're not doing themselves a service in their customers' eyes. So, but you're right, it's a heart and mind win. And I'm a cynical old Hector about some of this stuff. As one example, we use a load of collaboration tools internally at Star, and I really couldn't see the benefit until you realise that you can actually speak to somebody on the phone, share a screen with them, look at the presentation you're trying to pull together, put that into a SharePoint asset, and then distribute it out to anyone else who wants to see it. And it's cut down your working day by half because you're not having to replan and book different meetings. You're doing it as you think about it. And I'm quite a petulant chap, so I want things done there and then. So rolling that up into a true business scenario like a media company, how fantastic is that you're working on an article, you want a certain picture, of Marilyn Monroe, and you can collaborate with someone from Getty Images to get it there and then. That's what cloud is about, Tim.
Okay, Grant, you're not half as difficult to work with as people told me you were. I'd just like to say that to you. If there is, to sum this up then, if there's one thing that you could say to media companies who are listening to this, that you could say, here's a cloud thing that you could pretty easily get a hold of, sort of thing that you're probably not doing now, and it doesn't involve a 6-month project because, they ain't got time to do that. What would you pick out?
So I would say some of the real functional IT services that you're using today, use them better. Use Microsoft tools better, deliver them in a different way, and free up your IT resources to do the more innovative work.
Okay, so that's the media in the cloud. If you're convinced about that, or if you're not convinced, you've got a few more questions, let us know, because we'll pass them back to Grant. We can't answer them ourselves, but Grant can, can't you?
I'll try, and then I'll bring in a media expert that can wax lyrical about how we've worked with some fantastic customers in the UK.
he has people to do it for him. Grant Hanna, thank you very much.
Thank you.